Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for liking and subscribing and all that fun stuff. You've been amazing. I cannot believe so far how far we come in such a short time, and so I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for that. So today we're going to talk about our trip. My husband and myself and our two kids went on a promptu little family vacation, isolated. Look, I know COVID and everything, don't judge me, okay? It was super social distance, super isolated. We kept our mask on. We were within 6 feet of people, so we did our job, okay? Just before anybody tries to rip me on that. Anyway, one part of our trip was we went to Washington, D.C. It was so like dead there. Like no one, it was just, there was no one there. The streets, you could go outside and you really didn't see a lot of people. You could walk around, you really didn't come into contact with people. A lot of the stores were closed, so we weren't doing any shopping or anything like that. We were looking for food a few times. We were looking for food a couple times, but that's pretty much it. But I wanted to share with you some videos that I took while we were at Washington, D.C. and kind of tell you how that went. So our first day in Washington, we were hungry when we got in, and so we decided to walk around and try to find some food. And so we were walking around, we so happened to stumble on, I wish I could say it any other way, but we really didn't realize how close we were. But we so happened to stumble upon Black Lives Matter, the street that they just changed in DC and dedicated to Black Lives Matter, which is right in front of the White House, which honestly was really cool. And it was very interesting because there was a protest going on. We didn't know there was a protest going on, but there was. And so we walked down, we saw the protest, we went and took pictures in front of the White House. But it was interesting because when we were walking down and we stumbled onto the protest, there was someone who we walked by and they were like, hey, we have water if you guys need water. Do you need water? We were just walking by and we're like, oh, no, we're okay. We weren't really a part of the demonstration. And so, we didn't want to take water from anybody, and we had water, so it was fine. We were just like, no, it's completely fine. Like, thank you so much. Like, we don't need water. And he was like, are you sure? We just want to make sure everybody's hydrated that's walking around. And honestly, it painted this picture for us. We were like, wow, like, we're just walking by, and this guy doesn't know us, and he just said, do you guys want some water? And there were cops there, but it was so peaceful. It was like no one was really doing anything. The cops were just kind of talking, to people, making sure everybody was okay. The demonstrators were there. They even had like yoga at night. I didn't go, but they had it. But they had yoga at night on the street, and it was just so really beautiful, to see that this was happening in our nation's capital. And, sometimes the media tries to portray it like, oh, these protests are so violent, these protests are this, and they're really not. Now, I try to make it a point when I'm talking to people to make sure that they don't mix in the protesters and the looters, because they are two different groups. There are people out there that are protesting that want change. We need change, not from, not having Crayola company, have a box of, skin colored tone crayons, or Band-Aid having, Band-Aid skin colored tone Band-Aids, or anything that looks like a smoke signal, for change. But we want real, actual change. We want change in our laws. We want our lawmakers to do things so that we can have equality within our races in our country. And that's huge, and I know there's going to be people that say, well, Black people can vote, they have freedoms and, things like that. I don't have time to go into that. Let's just look up the statistics. We'll go over it again, I'm sure. It was just so neat to walk up onto Washington, D.C. and walk up on the White House and see those things. And then our second day, what we did was we walked to the Washington Monument. We walked to the Washington Monument and to the Lincoln Memorial. They're right across from each other. If you've ever seen a picture of Washington, D.C., they're literally just right across from each other. The World War II monument was there too. We saw that. A memorial, rather. We saw that. It was so interesting to go into the Lincoln Memorial and see when you go into Lincoln Memorial, underneath where you would go on the elevators, which we had to take an elevator because of our stroller, where you would go onto the elevators, there is this tribute to and memorial. It has the Emancipation Proclamation in it, which I found the way it was worded is just incredible. I've never read it until that day. I'm making it a point to go read things like the Declaration of Independence, the Emancipation Proclamation, things like that are our history of our nation. But it was just so overwhelming that that the words that Abraham Lincoln said were said, and how he worded them. It was insane. And then to go in to this room, and you have all these pictures in the room, and the room is just filled with pictures, a lot of them from the march in Washington that Dr. Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. And it was just incredible to see pictures of the demonstrators, of the protesters that were there, that were protesting, obviously for and there to see equality in jobs and stuff like that. But then to also see the people that were like counter-protesting against them. It's just incredible to see those things in person and just to witness history. And another cool thing was that they have this plaque on the front of the Washington Memorial. So when you're walking out, you have this little plaque there, and it's where Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech. And, a lot of people pull from, I Have a Dream. A lot of times I wonder if people actually read Dr. King's speeches, things that he says in full, or they just say, don't judge by the color of your skin, but the content of your character. And so, but to see standing on the plaque where Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech, and looking out, and in my mind just envisioning the pictures that I've seen of all those people that were protesting and fighting, and to think in some cases, we are still having a similar fight today. It's like Dr. King didn't die and then all the racists just went away. Racism didn't just go away, unfortunately. But to see how impactful standing on those steps were, I honestly almost started crying, for two reasons. One, because obviously I'm standing on history, not only as an American, but as a Black American, as an African American, being at the place where Dr. Martin Luther King gave his most iconic speech. Also overwhelmed at the fact that while some people would say that racism is not as overt as it was then, it's still here, and we're not that far removed from it. But we'll continue to fight the good fight. We'll continue to see not only people be treated equal, but to see God's glory shine through all this. I truly believe that this is the heart of God. I truly believe that, if you believe in Jesus, if you believe, and even if you don't, just being a compassionate human, just to see like, wow, people are being mistreated, and we need to actively work together to be anti-racist and to end racism in the best way that we can, and obviously as time goes on, it'll go, generations will die off. The racism that we've known in the 50s and the 60s obviously isn't as overt as it is today, but obviously those things are still being passed on. Like I talk about my husband's parents and my grandmother, my grandparents, and they're in their 70s and 80s, and these are things that they've just experienced over and over and over again. And I don't want that for my kids. I don't want my kids to, my kids are 4 and 1, and I don't want my kids to have to look back and keep fighting this fight, and them saying, well, my mom lived through this, and my grandmother and my grandparents lived through this, and we're living through this again. Like that's the point. That's why we have to continue to do it. We can't just let these moments just die down and, now we're going to stop talking about things in our history because it's not as prominent. It's not as in our face anymore. When then the reality is that it's just not in our face right now, but unless we get a grip on these things, they will continue to happen, and we can't let it die so that it doesn't happen again. And we have to be actively working like I said, to end racism, to be the change, for our kids, for our grandkids, for the people in our life that have already had to fight this fight. But on any note, I will show you guys the videos. The videos are coming on now. Again, thank you so much, guys, for liking and subscribing and just going on this journey with me on Tuesdays when we talk about racism and you know, just try to work actively together to be just better people, a better society for our kids, for our grandkids. And yeah, you guys are amazing, and I love you guys. So we are walking in DC trying to find some food because we hungry, and we are on Black Lives Matter Plaza, Plaza, I think. So that's pretty cool. So we're trying to find some food, and they ain't got no food open nowhere in DC, but that's okay. We'll find something. So I'll show you guys the Black Lives Matter thing. YouTube. So I am walking to the exact spot where Dr. Martin Luther King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. Isn't that cool? Like, what is this? This is so surreal. Like, he stood right here and gave that speech. It's just amazing.